Hey, Coach, I'm super excited you found us on YouTube. That's exciting for all of us. If you like these kind of resources, make sure you go over and check out teachhoops.com up above. Great resource, 14-day free trial, become a mentor, everything you would ever want to become a better coach. So go check that out. That's first thing. Second thing is make sure you subscribe. Go down below, make sure you subscribe, and you'll get all the updates and everything that kind of moves forward. So have a great day. Talk to you soon. And if you want anything new, put it down below. And I hope you enjoy the video. All right. Welcome to High School Hoops, episode Lucky 13. Am I right? Lucky 13?
Lucky 13. You are correct, Coach.
13. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I know I ate way too much food. And I'm concerned about my team. But anyway, that's a whole side note. All right. Coach, what's today's topic?
I think it's every question we have is really important, but you can constantly debate about it, and it's a great one too, debating with two coaches like us today. What wins games early in your perspective? What are the key things that coaches can take from our podcast today? Of what are some things that they can work on in practice, or some what you would call golden nuggets that can win games early?
That's a good question. So I think there's a couple things. First of all, I think defense wins games early. So I think defense is always a little bit farther, especially depending on how many fall athletes you have playing. So I always see my defense a little bit moving along a little bit faster in practice and day-to-day stuff. So I think defense, what wins games early? I think defense wins it over offense, just because depending on where you're coaching, I'm not sure they're getting as much offensive sets, or their shots maybe not as good as it is in the middle of February. So that'd be the first thing. I think teams that make the fewest mistakes early tend to win. And this is purely observation, but what I've seen is coaches that have been around a while tend to win early because they kind of know what's going on and kind of some of those things. So I definitely think defense wins early. I think the team that makes the fewest mistakes, which it holds true the entire year, but definitely executes and does those things. I put offensive rebounding on my little list when I was going through this, but I don't know. What do you think, Coach? I think lack of mistakes is a big one.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about lack of mistakes, I think the teams that are the most fundamentally sound in the beginning of the season are huge.
Yeah.
I wrote down on my notes a Steelers reference. I'm currently finishing Tony Dungy's book and talking about his journey as a NFL coach when he was an assistant for the Steelers, and their key thing was, all the good teams are going to be really good against each other, but it's the ones that master the fundamentals that win the edge over all the really good teams. And
right.
So those are because everybody's going to have guys that could shoot everything, but it's really going to be those fundamental things at the end of the game that are going to be really important. Eliminating possessions by rebounding and turnovers, which is huge. I think that's a huge ratio. Getting defensive rebounds, not allowing them to get offensive rebounds, the opponent, taking care of the basketball. Defense, absolutely. What you do with defense, having some multiple early schemes early in the year can be difficult for an opponent. Just don't have man-to-man defense. Have
right.
A couple.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's like if you've worked on the stuff in the other 9 months and your kids have developed, yes, that people don't have the bullets in the gun or the things in their arsenal that they do come February, where here's my move on the chessboard, and here's your counter move. If people don't necessarily always have the counter moves ready because they're worried about their parent meeting, they're worried about their first game, they're worried about teaching the kids to get on the bus, they're worried about, and they haven't done everything that they initially need to do to be successful, I think.
From a standpoint of trying to eliminate second chance baskets from opponents is huge, because in my opinion, in high school basketball, where there's maybe for you at Memorial you have some dunks, but often in smaller schools we don't have those type of athletes that can dunk. A great momentum changer for teams is second chance baskets.
Right.
They get another possession, or they get it off a rebound, they finish and they foul and one. Those type of things are great momentums for teams trying to win, but it's also hinders the team that allowed that second chance basket. I think the foul game is huge early in the season, and it's really.
Why do you think the foul game is big?
Because I think kids make really stupid mistakes early in the season. Depending on what you value with shot blocking and so forth. If you can keep your best players and your veteran players early on in the game, early into the late part of the game, early in the season, especially if you have a veteran team, I think you're going to most likely win. When you're
So that's an interesting. I had never thought about the foul aspect. And the foul aspect is, you're right. You haven't necessarily taught them the value of not committing a foul, the value of being on the court rather than being on the bench next to me. That's a great point. I mean, because it does. They learn it by January,
right? But another thing is,
like, Drew, I get in foul trouble and coach is sitting me, kind of thing.
But you can look at the fouls as I had a situation. I remember a couple of years ago, we were playing a game in late February, and the foul game gave us an opportunity to foul 2 or 3 times. We had the lead, but it constantly allowed that team to not have to waste a timeout, and so they had to try to draw a set play, 3-quarter court, side out, and we ended up actually stealing it and winning the game off a turnover to win the game. So a foul game also gives you more opportunities if you're down at the end of the game, if you need to foul too. So I think it's something to keep in mind. I just thought that was something to think about for our listeners. Free throw line, if you can get to the free throw line and make free throws, is huge.
Well, I will say this 8 billion times. Free throw line is the momentum changer. I'm telling you. I tell kids, if someone's on a run, you got to get to the free throw line. You got to shoot layups. You got to shoot a good shot, and we got to get to. I mean, that's a momentum. That's like a fumble in a football game. It's crazy what. It's a dunk. It's basically 3 things can just shift momentum. Someone that shoots a lot of free throws, the dunk, and the kid that's shooting hot from 3.
I think though too is that allowing the coaches that are listening to not try to do too much early on in the season and create when we get going with this podcast, as we continue on in the summer months, we talk about more about practice planning.
Right.
Don't try to do so much in the beginning of the year. Kind of map it out. Like last year when we won the state championship, we didn't throw our press until December time. So we had all holiday break to work on it, and no teams knew about it. And then the second half of the season, they weren't ready for it because they weren't. So
you got to keep a couple things. You got to keep a couple things for you,
right?
And like you and I were talking about before we came on, I spent a month with one of my assistant coaches. I put it on Teach Hoops. But behind the scenes, basically him and I in a room just brain dumping. Because you got to map out. I'm still freaked out. I'm thinking, what are we going to do in December? What are we going to do in January? What are we going to, is everything going to line up the way it needs to line up? And it doesn't, and then you got to reshuffle everything. So I think you're right. Just thinking about that is key, and keeping something in your back pocket is really important.
And a last thing I would say is if a team that you're playing has only 1 or 2 really good scorers early on in the season, those other 3, 4, or 5 guys aren't going to make the shots that they do later on in the season.
Right.
So this is a great opportunity, instead of doing multiple defenses, that you just to maybe alter your man-to-man defense. Maybe you face guard their best player the entire game, and then you have everybody else decide to play deeper in the gaps. I think that could be very beneficial for teams. Is if you know the seniors, their top player, and he's scoring 20 points a game, and you're going to face guard him and rotate guys on him all night, that might be a really good way to win a game early in the season if you can eliminate top scorers early, because other guys aren't going to be able to step up till they get comfortable with that role.
Yeah, I think it's easier to outmaneuver people early than
early in the season.
I agree. All right. We'll talk next week. Thanks, Coach.
No problem. Thank you.
Hey, Coach, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you're looking for more videos like that, check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. 14-day free trial. I do not think you'll be disappointed.